Oh, this isn't the garden you think I meant, did you? I've still got about 3 more months before I can play in the soil. And it's only 10 degrees out today, even so it's beautiful and sunny. Why don't we go inside where it's warm and cozy and chat about garden planting? Hey y'all, welcome to Homemaker Living. Thanks for joining me. Today we're going to talk about all things garden planting. First thing I like to do is grab a cup of tea because that makes garden planting all that much better. And then what I like to do when I'm first starting out planting my garden for the new year is take inventory of my seed collection. So that is step one. So the first thing you're going to want to do is go through your seed packet inventory. I keep mine in this little basket and they're all upright so I can see them easily. I also keep the seed packets if I happen to not have any more of that particular seed, but I keep the packet so that I know what I grew the year before. So go through your inventory and take note of what you still have in hand, what you want to repeat and grow again, do you need to reorder or not, and perhaps a new variety. Maybe you want to grow something new this year, and you can determine that based on what your past seasons have been. Sorry for interrupting the video, but as I was editing it, I realized that I did not share with you the method that I'm using this year to track my seed inventory. And I just created a simple spreadsheet, and I thought that I would just go ahead and share that with you here, and then we'll get back to the video. I did a basic spreadsheet with 10 columns, and I titled all those columns vegetables, varieties, the plant family name, and then I numbered the plant family for easy sorting and using on my plant mapping in the garden. I included quantity and a column for whether they were heirloom, open pollinated, or hybrid, whether my seed was organic or not, who the producer or the seller was, the days of maturity, and the year of the seed packet. You can see here in some of them I have a number of years. That's because I've done some seed saving and kept them separate. And then I merely just listed all of the vegetables in the first column and the varieties in the second column. And I highlighted those items that I wanted to either reorder, or if they were new, such as asparagus, I added it to the row here and highlighted it yellow. And then also highlighted those in yellow in the variety column so that I knew which ones I was ordering new this year. And then later I will use the same spreadsheet and modify it a little bit in the columns to use it in my seed sowing plan for the year. I also like to consider what worked well and what didn't. Did I have something that didn't do well in my current environment or growing zone? Did I have something that I just couldn't manage myself and it was either too much work or just didn't turn out well, so I don't want to grow it again? And I also look at food waste. Did we have things that we grew that we didn't eat enough of, and so we had food waste there? Things not last long? Did they not store as long as I thought they would store? Did they just not fare well in my growing zone? Those are all things I'll consider before I either reorder or regrow, because I don't want to waste my time and or money growing something that just doesn't work well for me. And then every year I like to try something new. Maybe it's a variety of a cucumber I haven't grown before, or a new squash variety. It's always good to try something new because you don't know what you're missing out on if you don't. And always be sure to grow what you eat. That will minimize food waste as well as save you time and money that you're not growing something that your family does not eat. I know that there are some gardeners that will, especially if they're growing in a small space, they'll grow what is costly at the grocery store, at the market. And then that way they feel like they are actually saving some money by producing those items that they love to consume, but don't necessarily love the price. A few other things you want to consider when you are selecting your plants is what growing zone you're in, what are your first and your last frost dates, so that you can gauge plants that have the right maturity dates so that you're able to harvest them and consume them before your season runs out and then they are not ready to harvest and use at that time. Some things will ripen off the vine, such as tomatoes, but that can be tricky depending on where they're at in their season. And you also want to consider your length of your grow day. Onions have a particular grow day season that they perform the best in. You might want to consider also your own challenges in your own environment as far as, do you have a lot of trees? Do you have too much shading? Most plants need a certain number of hours, a minimum hours, to be able to produce a harvest. All of those things are important to consider when you're looking at your plant maturity days. Be sure to consider your plot and your growing area before you make any purchases. Do you have enough real estate and enough area to grow the particular items that you wish to grow? I had a small garden in our last place, and so I couldn't grow large items like cabbage, broccoli, and cauliflower. They took up way too much real estate, so I had little yield for the space I had. So I tried to grow items that I knew I could fit in my beds, that had a higher yield that I could benefit from than growing 3 cabbages versus, a whole row of onions and garlic and leeks, something that took up a lot less space. So always consider your growing area as you decide what you want to purchase. And lastly, you want to consider, how much time are you willing to commit to your plants? Do you have time to prune? Do you have time to harvest? Do you have time to process? If any of those time constraints for you don't work for you, you may want to consider growing things that have less hands-on as far as harvesting and processing throughout the season, or the type of processing. So your root vegetables, carrots, beets, potatoes, those obviously just grow throughout the season, and you usually harvest them at one time unless you do succession planting. But at least those you harvest, if you prepare them, you dry them out, and you can store them for longer use, versus other vegetables that you may have to process. Tomatoes, they're kind of coming off the plants throughout the season, and how will you harvest them? You have to commit to pruning them, harvesting them, and then processing. And there's a variety of ways you can do that, but it still takes a lot of time. So how much time are you committed to, after you've put the time in to purchase the seeds, grow the plants, care for them, fertilize them, harvest, and then the fruits of your labor, can you consume that? So you want to make sure that the time you're putting into it is applicable to you. So I think that wraps up the planning as far as what you have on hand, what you want to order, and what you want to consider. So then you can move into the next step, which is purchasing your seeds. So for step 2, it's purchasing seeds. After you determine what you want to grow and what you can grow based on your own parameters, where do you buy your seeds? Well, you can buy your seeds from a number of places, obviously. I'm sure you've seen them when you've been out at retail stores. I've purchased mine at co-ops, hardware stores, big box stores, feed stores. There's a number of places that you can purchase in person in retail. I prefer, myself, what I've done the last few years, is using seed catalogs and purchasing online. And the reason I really like using the seed catalog, because you get a little bit more information from the producer, from the grower, as far as details about those seeds. Sometimes they'll go into details about whether it's disease resistant, or it's good on certain diseases or certain pests, or just, like I said, the more finer details than you get from getting a seed packet, reading the front of it, reading the back of it, how to sow. You can get a little bit more information from that. Now you can also go online. I know that there's some seed packets that I've had for a while that I don't necessarily have a reference to, that I can go online and I can just Google that particular seed and then read some more information about it. But when I'm doing my seed purchases and I'm making decisions based on what I've decided I want to purchase and grow, then I find this to be a great tool. I'm not saying that purchasing at a grocery store or any of those other retail stores is a bad idea, because I've done that myself. I have 2 seeds that I did not order a couple of weeks ago that I know I need to pop over and get someplace, which is corn and radish. I don't want to just order those 2 seeds from a seed catalog or online and pay the shipping for that. So I have purchased in the past. I'll have to say that I also have been shopping before and stopped and perused the seeds and go, oh, I want to try this, or oh, I want to try that. So by all means, use what works for you, but those are the areas where you can predominantly find seeds. Another thing you may want to consider when you are purchasing your seeds is, do you want an heirloom variety, an open pollinated variety, or a hybrid? And they all come with their own sets of advantages. An heirloom variety is a heritage seed that has a proven line of passing down from generation to generation to either families or communities. So that's kind of a fun one to grow because you know that it has some history and it's been around for a while. The open pollinated variety are those plants that are open pollinated by nature. Bees, butterflies, moths, rain, wind. And when those are pollinated naturally, they should produce a seed that will replicate that same plant the following season. And a hybrid are plants where breeders have intentionally crossbred parent plants to produce a seed and an offspring that has the best characteristics of those parent plants. A lot of times they'll do that to help minimize pest and disease resistant, so you have the best outcome possible for those for that produce that you're growing. Now, I typically gravitate to an organic seed, and I gravitate towards open pollinating. I have purchased a few heirloom seeds, and I think as going forward in the future, I'll probably do a little bit more research and consider that when I'm purchasing seeds. I have purchased hybrids as well, generally because I haven't been able to find an open pollinated one and what I've been looking for in that particular variety. Or I'm drawn to it because maybe I've had issues in the past with a particular crop, and this one, has some characteristics where it is more preventable for those diseases and pests. So I have a variety of all of them, and the only thing that you have to consider is on the hybrid is seed saving. You most likely will not get the same plant as you grew the season before. Now, I will tell you a quick story on an interesting experience I had. I purchased a kale packet that was an heirloom packet. It says clearly on the front, it says heirloom. And I didn't mean to seed save, it was by accident. So those kale plants overwintered, and then they went to flower that following spring, and the bees were all over them, so I let them grow. And then I didn't pull them out soon enough, and then they of course grew seed pods, and I went ahead and harvested the seeds. And then the next 2 following years that I used those seeds, they must not have been an heirloom seed in the packet. Maybe they got packaged wrong, but I grew purple kale and green curly kale, and I did get some dinosaur kale out of it, which was the original seed. So when you grow seeds from a hybrid, you're going to get the history of those seeds from those parents. So just something to consider when you're seed saving. Mine was probably a fluke that happened, and it was just by accident, but it was still an experience that I had. Now that I have a bigger garden this year, we moved to this property last year, and I have a garden that's much larger than I had in the past. I was able to increase the crops that I want to grow and actually grow some that have that bigger real estate that I'm kind of excited about. So let me share with you what I purchased this year, because it's always so exciting when you get to try new things. So this year, the things that are on a big real estate scale, I am going to grow broccoli and cauliflower. Never grown those before. I'm going to grow 3 different kinds of cabbages: a green cabbage, tiara, a Napa cabbage, Emiko, a ruby ball cabbage, a red cabbage. So we do eat quite a bit of cabbages. So again, we eat these things, so we're going to grow them. What else did I buy that I haven't grown these before? So I'm going to grow asparagus from seeds. I know I won't be able to harvest them for probably 3 years, but I'm going to go ahead and try from seed. I've never grown lettuce. I've never grown celery before, so we're going to try that. I figure if they can grow it up in Alaska, I should be able to grow it here. And tomatillos. I've grown many of tomato varieties before, but I've never grown tomatillos, and my husband asked to try those. And I generally grow bell peppers and jalapeno peppers, but this year, for canning purposes of some things that we want to do, we're going to grow Anaheim College and Italian pepperoncini. Let's see, what else? Onions. Of course, I've grown onions for a number of years, but I'm really interested in growing storage onions this year because I'd like them to last for, I'm hoping, 6 months. I think these said 9 to 12 months, I think. I don't recall. Of course, I've read about quite a few of them, but I know that I have at least 6 months if I store them properly. So I ordered this red onion, monastro, and Italian, which is a white or a yellow onion. White white onion. And these that don't have a long storage life, walla walla, but who doesn't love a sweet onion? So we're gonna grow those this year as well. I've grown the peas you eat that are like snow peas in the past, but never shelling peas. So I ordered some shelling peas. And then my husband doesn't really like the green beans that I've been growing, so I decided to try a new green bean based on the research of reading through the guide, what I thought would be a good one for us. So this one is a Lady Di runner. And he wanted me to order some wax beans to can some 4-bean salad. And then let's see, and then additionally what I purchased that I've had before that I'm out of are leeks. These, I'm not sure how to pronounce it, Nantes carrots. Always have really good luck with those. Butter crunch lettuce. And then I always like to grow some pumpkins. I do have a vining sugar pumpkin, but this year I was able to find a bush pumpkin, and it says jack-o'-lantern on it, but they're kind of small and they're great for pie and baking as well. And this one, I'll give you an example, this is an F1, so this is a hybrid. And yeah, I'd like to save the pumpkin seeds because they're easy to do. But because this was a bush variety and I've never been able to find a bush variety well, in my limited research, I haven't come across one that fit that characteristics of what I was looking for. So I went ahead and grabbed this one, even though it was a hybrid, to try. It would be interesting to actually plant a seed-saved seed and see what I get from that, see what that was crossed from. Anyway, so that the seeds that I determined after going through all of those steps, deciding what I wanted to grow in addition and or replace from what I have. And of course, the other things that I grow are all your standard, green beans, peas, corn, tomato, bell peppers. What else do I have in here? I have some more onions in here, squash, Swiss chard, your herbs, basil, cilantro, have a number of flowers that I'd like to grow as well, your beets, your radishes. So the basics. I'm kind of a basic girl. I'll grow the basics. I don't really grow anything exotic. But that works for me. Once you've made all your decisions, then you can take the leap based on your needs and research. So now we can move on to step number 3, planning your garden, which is really the fun part.